For some people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, HVAC can really become a life or death situation whenever it gets into the triple digits. This is a relationship business. We can be more important to that customer than a doctor can be.
Why HVAC?
Because of how much of a need it is in Dallas. We are in one of the HVAC capitals of the United States.
And you took over a company that's been serving customers since 19.
Yes, I'm the fourth owner of Washburn.
And what was it like stepping into a business that's been there since 1960?
Step number one for any business is just making sure the right people are on the bus. Our area has 5 million potential customers. I wanted to be working on this 40, 50 hours a week, at least.
Hiring? How exactly did you tackle that?
You're gonna have to put down $15, $20, $25 a day to get the leads. One of my questions I'm asking in an interview is would a customer feel comfortable with this person and being in their home?
What sort of qualities do you look in while hiring?
Relatively clean background check.
How do you defend your price while staying competitive? What is your usual net and gross goal, in terms of profitability?
And now you're asking the deep questions here. I think that you should shoot for 45% profit margins on install and 60% profit margins on service. It's really competitive. I know of companies in Dallas that have 40 trucks and only 4 of those trucks are in service today. 2025 in Dallas is the second toughest year that we've had in the last 20 years. The reality is that interest rates haven't dropped. Our industry has gotten hit by tariffs.
Welcome to the HVAC Hotshots, the podcast where HVAC entrepreneurs like you learn to dominate your market and build multi-million-dollar empires. Every week, we bring you proven strategies, expert insights, and inspiring stories from industry leaders who have been in the trenches and come out on top. Whether you are just starting out or scaling up, this is your go-to resource to ignite your business goal. So buckle up, hotshot. It's time to turn up the heat and make your HVAC dreams a reality.
Taylor, welcome to the podcast. This is actually the episode 14 of the HVAC Hotshots, and everyone, welcome back to the channel again. For listeners who may not know you, Taylor, could you start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit about your background and how did you start with HVAC and all of these stuff?
Sure. I'm actually fairly new to the HVAC field. I got my engineering degree from Texas A&M back in 2000, and I started out in the semiconductor industry, and I was in various different companies from 2010 through 2023. In 2024, I was looking to purchase a company, and I thought that HVAC and the trades was the perfect place to be. One of the reasons is because I felt like that relatively recession-proof, right? Especially in a place like Texas where it's over 100 degrees. If it's a life, and honestly, it's a way to give back too, right? I mean, for some people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, HVAC can really become a life or death situation whenever it gets into the triple digits. So, we can be more important to that customer than a doctor can be. And so it really gives me a sense of happiness to be able to help a customer when they really need help and work with them.
Did you had any prior experience in HVAC or was it all new to you?
I had friends that were in the industry who helped me in looking at different companies and, talking to different brokers and just looking at the financials. I think that was the thing that kind of drew me in, is just seeing, how they made their companies work and then wanting to try something like that for myself.
Makes sense. Why HVAC? Why not plumbing? Why not electrical? Why not roofing?
I think one of the reasons is just because of how much of a need it is in Dallas, in the area that I'm in right now. I mean, we are in one of the HVAC capitals of the United States. I mean, Phoenix has a lot of HVAC, Florida has a lot of HVAC, but Texas is where it's at.
Yeah, makes sense. And you took over a company that's been serving customers since 19.
Yes. So that was originally from So that was originally from David Washburn. He was the original owner. That's where the Washburn Air name comes from. And he owned the business from 1960 to 1999, where he sold it to his best friend who had been working in the company. His best friend owned it for 20 years through 2019. And then I'm the fourth owner of Washburn.
And why this business specifically?
I think I like the geographic location. Grapevine is, I think, very strategically located. It's right kind of in the middle of Dallas and Fort Worth. It's right next to DFW Airport. We're centrally located where we can hit a very wide variety of customers. The DFW Metroplex, our area has 5 million potential customers, but we do most of our marketing locally in the Grapevine area.
Makes sense. And what was it like stepping into such a well-established, or at least, a business that's been there since 1960? What was like that?
For me, one of the first things I wanted to do is talk to some of the previous owners, get some of the history, some of the culture of the company, kind of learn what kind of customers were interested in Washburn, and then how I could serve those customers better.
Makes sense. And when you took over, what operation system or process did you identify as that needed the most improvement?
I felt like that their marketing arm was,
Mhm.
this is, hindsight's 2020. You learn kind of as you go, right? I think that what I could learn from the previous owners was, I think that their marketing was really top notch, or that they were bringing in a lot of customers, but I felt like that they were a little bit lacking on the operation side and the communication side. So making sure that we did everything with excellence. And
Mm.
I was walking into a situation where the previous owner was more absentee. I wanted to be working on this 40, 50 hours a week at least, right? This was, this is what I do. This is my life. So
Yeah.
I think that it's really helped the company having an owner who is very hands-on with the day-to-day.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. What, I just want to get an idea of how exactly was it like, when you actually started with the company, did you made any significant changes initially?
Several significant changes. There was some personnel situations that I needed to take care of kind of right off the bat. I think step number one for any business is just making sure the right people are on the bus, right? Like, make sure that you have the right employees who are properly motivated. Another big area that I had to put a lot of focus on from the beginning was the relationship with distribution, with the distributor.
Mhm.
Being new to the industry, I didn't know anybody, right? So
Mhm.
there are but this is such a mecca for HVAC. There are so many this is a relationship business. HVAC
Mhm.
is. And I think, getting to know, my supplier, Shear Supply House,
Mhm.
Goodman,
Mhm.
but talk to everybody, talk to Carrier,
Yeah.
talk to Linux, let them know about your vision. I mean, for me, it was letting them know about my vision for the company, my plan as far as marketing is concerned, and then getting them on board with me of saying, how can we make this possible? It's all a numbers
Mhm.
game at the end, right? Like, it's a volume game. It's a numbers game. You have to convince yourself that you're going to be successful. You have to convince your distributors that you're going to be successful, so that you can get the best prices on equipment, so that you can help the customer the best way you can.
Yeah. Yeah, that perfectly makes sense. Initially, what all brands did you partner up with?
I'm sorry.
Initially, what all brands did you partner up with? Or has do any in your opinion, becoming a preferred dealer change your business in any way?
It did, because it allowed me to get better prices and,
Mm.
become a preferred dealer with one, two, maybe three customers, but you have
Mhm.
relationships with everybody. I have a guy I can call for train. I'm a
Mhm.
preferred dealer with Shear Supply House, with Ream, and
Mhm.
with Goodman. But I do business with everybody. Talk to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the main thing in HVAC, especially networking, and having connections. Yeah, I would certainly agree on that. And you touched upon one more stuff, and that was hiring. How exactly did you tackle that? Because especially in our industry, finding and keeping good technicians is a big challenge.
It
What's
is.
been your approach to building a strong team?
It's that's a that is a big challenge. I would say I kind of had to learn the hard way, trial and error of what works and what doesn't.
Mhm.
Um, for me, it was going on to Indeed, and honestly, you're going to have to spend some money, right? I mean, you're going to have to
Yeah.
put down 15, 20, $25 a day
Yeah.
to get the leads.
Mhm.
It was a good resource, because I feel like that Indeed is very widely
Mhm.
used by the technician industry. They know about it, but I was only getting one or two leads a day when I was
Mhm.
going the free route. And then, you switch over and I was getting 7 to 8 different candidates a day, when I was going um,
Mhm.
the other way. And uh, anyone who I thought was qualified, right? I mean, I'm talking about, EPA certified, at least a registered tech, preferably a certified
Mhm.
technician, a journeyman tech. Um, what I was looking for is 5 to 7 years in the industry, right? Someone who
Yeah.
I didn't have to hold their hand, and then I was willing to pay for that kind of expertise. But if I thought they were qualified, I was going in for the interview process. And then once
Mhm.
I got to the interview stage, I mean, I just knew that I'd have to interview probably maybe 25, maybe 30
Yeah.
technicians before I kind of honed in on what exactly I was looking for.
Mm, makes sense. So you're hiring the top tier talent and paying for that instead of
Yeah,
training someone from the real scratch. Yeah, that makes
that's
sense.
right.
So is your at the moment is your hiring mainly on Indeed or is there another platform?
I've gone to some of the other trade websites, sometimes, there's, trade social media
Yeah.
sites. I've dabbled a little bit in LinkedIn
Mhm.
trying to find different candidates. I think what you want to avoid in our industry is
Mhm.
just hiring the retread technicians, the ones who
Yeah.
are going from one company to another every 6 to 8 months. You want
Mhm.
the kind of guys that will spend at least 2 to 3 years with an
Mhm.
employer where they've built a reputation, where the employer knows what to expect from them before they move on. So, and if that's what we're looking for as owners, that also should be something that technicians are looking for too. Even if they're not happy at a location where they're at, you can switch. Just don't switch every year, right? Because, um, as an owner, you're looking for, okay, we're going to be investing in you, right? Like
Yeah.
we're in training and resources in our truck. You're going to have
Mhm.
access to the account. All of that stuff. So we want to make sure that it's a good return on the investment.
True that.
Um, and another thing is these are people that are going into customers' homes, right? So
Mhm.
when I think of my friends, and one of my questions I'm asking in an interview is would a customer feel comfortable with this person and being in their home?
Yeah.
If they have tattoos, great, but can you cover those up, right? Let's not
Mhm.
have any nose piercings.
Yeah.
It's small stuff, but it's like, okay, would this person feel comfortable, with this technician around their kids?
Yeah.
And then when they do feel that way, then the customer starts to build trust with you, and then you're their go-to guy. But really, for me as the owner, I only have phone conversations with them. It's
Mhm.
really the technician's time, the face-to-face time that the technician has that really seals the deal.
Yeah, absolutely love this point to be honest. Yeah. Other than the experience, what sort of qualities do you look in while hiring?
Relatively clean background check. I mean, I think this is kind of going back to it. Uh, Relatively clean driving record. You know,
Yeah.
I think that one thing that I was shocked about when I came into the industry is because you need all this insurance. You need general liability, you need umbrella, you need
Mhm.
you know, but all of that stuff is relatively small compared to commercial auto insurance.
Mm.
And when those insurers see guys with 3 and 4 DUIs driving your trucks, your rates are going to shoot up.
Yeah.
And so, you have to ask yourself, okay, I know that this guy's going to cost me several $100s a month on my insurance. Is he worth it? Right. So that is a factor in the hiring decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. After you have hired someone, are they gonna go through any sort of training program, maybe sales or something like that?
So for me, working with my distributors, all the distribution houses have great training programs, and I get them
Mhm.
plugged in either in the fall, the winter, and in the spring. In the summer, it's go time. Like I don't want to take my technician for 8 hours of training in a day
Mm,
and then have a customer who needs to have his AC checking. It's an emergency, right?
mm,
Where
mm,
it's like, hey, if you can't be at my house the next 3 hours, I'll call someone who can. So usually in Texas, when it gets to October, November, December, we're talking
mm,
about 60s, 70-degree weather. It's
mm.
never really an emergency, right? The outside temperatures is quite nice, right? So
Yeah,
it gives us the flexibility to schedule training and then schedule around that.
yeah, yeah, makes sense. I was actually going to one of my clients' phone call. He is in, Tucson. It was like 104 degrees back then, and the customer was screaming, "Hey, can you guys come today in 3 hours?" And we were like, "Hell no, bro, we are actually fully booked." But yeah,
Yes.
that
Yes.
that happens so often.
I have had customers who will call me and it's 7 p.m. on a Sunday
Mm.
and they're like, I need someone now. And I'm like, okay, well, we can be out there at 8 o'clock on Monday. And they're like, that's not quick enough. So I'm like, okay, like, that's the kind of customer we're probably gonna lose, right? But
Yeah.
we do our best in every situation because we know how uncomfortable it can be to be in a hot house.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. This is a question, that I got on my last video. This was a comment actually. This revolves around pricing. And when it comes to pricing, especially for parts that customers can look up online, how do you defend your price while staying competitive? This is happening more often.
So for a lot of these places, you can go and buy parts online.
Yeah.
They're not going to get parts for the same rates that we're getting parts. You know, like I said, it's a numbers game, right? So if I'm doing, let's just say I'm doing 15 installs a year, 20 installs, 50 installs a year. Obviously, I'm going to get a better price than a single homeowner who's wanting to buy one. I mean, that's a one and done customer. They're going to buy one part and then they're done. Right? The other part is who's going to install it for you. Like for us, so we don't install parts that a customer will buy online, right? First of all, how do we know that they bought the right part, right? So we install the part they bought, the unit doesn't work, and they're like, well, why doesn't the unit work? And then they're looking at us like, you broke something. That's why we like to go out there and diagnose the issue and then make sure that we have the proper parts and we have the parts that are made for that model and that serial number so that we can make sure that they work and that we can ensure our work, right? So if it doesn't work, we're not going to charge the customer. If something is a complete flop, we're going to try to fix it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have repeat customers.
Yeah, makes sense. Talking about pricing again, what is your usual net and gross goal, in terms of profitability?
And now you're asking the deep questions here. Now you're asking the big questions. I think that you're talking about for the residential space, or you're talking.
Yeah.
I think that anyone who's if you have a good company, but you realize what you're paying for. You have a good company, you're TDLO licensed, right? You have your commercial HVAC license. You're insured, and you do good work. I think that you should shoot for 45% profit margins on install and 60% profit margins on service. That's the goal. Now, sometimes when it gets really competitive out there, right? I would say right now, the industry is like, at least in Dallas, it's really competitive. I know of companies in Dallas that have 40 trucks and only 4 of those trucks are in service today. It's a tough market. 2025, I've heard, from what I've talked to, 2025 in Dallas is the second toughest year that we've had in the last 20 years. So the first being probably COVID, where we had trouble getting parts in from China and other places, right? But this isn't a parts issue. I think that the market is relatively tight right now. So, I would be willing to go down on that profitability to make myself competitive. You kind of have to feel it out, right?
Yeah. Do you think it's happening because supply is increasing and demand ain't increasing with the same pace?
I think that part of it has to do with the economy.
Yeah.
The reality is that interest rates haven't dropped. So the reality is that, and we know this, we see this with our customers, people are hurting out there, right? I think part of it has to do with our industry has gotten hit by tariffs. So there's been pretty much a universal increase on parts due to getting parts from China and India, from other places, and then they get it assembled. And the end consumer has to take some of that. I think part of it has to do with the EPA mandates, right? So the whole industry has gone from 410A to 454B and R32. And so the factories had to completely they had to redesign the product, right? And the refrigerant that we're putting in is more expensive. The parts that we have more sensors, are smarter, are more expensive. And so inevitably part of that has to go to the end consumer. And so they're tighter. And overall, I'd say parts are 20% more due to those two things than they were in 2024. That's what makes it tough. That's what makes it tough.
That makes sense. Now, talking about marketing, are there any marketing channels or campaigns that have produced better results than you expected? And also, any channel that has, underperformed, I would say.
I think marketing is a challenge because you kind of have to look at it as a long game, right? You can't just say, hey, I'm going to slap down $5,000 this month and expect to get a $5,000 return. It's like, no, you need to be putting in, however much, but you might see a return on that in 6 months, in 12 months. especially if you're looking at SEO marketing. Uh, for me, you look at a whole life cycle.
Yeah.
I wanted to redesign our website. Okay, well, let's say it takes the developers 3 to 4 months to redesign the website. Once the website's in, it might have to sit in. It's called the Google sandbox, right? Where you'll get a new website, but Google's like, well, what is this, right? Like the bots haven't creeped over it to see, what it is, and so it's not ranking high on Google. So you have this like holding period there, and then it takes some months for it to season in, and then you slowly start to build credibility, right? You start to build keywords, you start to build domain authority, but all that stuff takes time. I think it's been easier for me since I bought a company from 1960 and I already had an established website. But for someone who's coming in, who's trying to go the startup route, it'll take twice as long.
What are channels you're spending on right now?
We've been spending on Google SEO for a year, and that was our main avenue. We have added direct mailers and we've added Google LSA as well.
Yeah, makes sense. We have had pretty good experience with SEO and ads, but talking about direct mailers, can you talk me more about that? How's that performing for you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How's direct mailer performing for you guys?
I think there's some real advantages to it. In any direct mailers, you have to have a call to action. So I don't ever send out a piece of mail if it doesn't have some coupons on it.
Yeah.
And it's got to be eye catching, right? So I mean, one of our promos that we run is up to $4,000 off of an HVAC unit. Now, that very true statement. I have no problem giving a $4,000 discount, but you'd be talking about a unit that costs $30,000. Most homeowners are not getting units like that, right? So there's a wide range, and I can say, okay, so for this range that a customer is looking for, this is the kind of discount that we can offer a customer like that.
Yeah.
For us, another big thing is how do you have staying power with a customer? That's really important to me. One of the things that we do in the spring and we do in the fall with our mailers is we'll send out magnet mailers. So it has a little magnet on the back so that you can attach it to your fridge. And in the spring, we do the Texas Rangers baseball schedule. Right now, we just says Texas baseball. Like there's no trademark infringement. Everything is public domain. You just have to worry about that kind of stuff, but it's all above water. But it lets them know, okay, what days are the Rangers playing? What days are they not playing? Right. And then we do something similar in the fall with the Dallas Cowboys. Right. People want to know who the Cowboys are playing. They want to know the TV channel that they're playing on. So we're like, okay, if I can get something that the customer wants and have them put it on their fridge, that's a huge win. It has my logo on it. It has our coupons on it. Let's say that homeowner then has a party at their house of 20, 30 people. Well, that's subliminal advertising that the customer is doing for me, right? It's already there. The key is if I can get it on the fridge, it's already a win.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. Yeah. That was a great point. This this is gonna be a profound question. If another business owner came to you wanting to acquire, another HVAC company like Washburn Air, what would you tell them to prepare for, both financially and mentally?
If another owner wanted to acquire Washburn?
Not Washburn, another HVAC company like Washburn.
I would say you have to do your research. That's number one. You have to know, you have to know the financials of it, right? Like, so you have to know EBITDA numbers. You have to know, the right questions to ask, right? Also, you have to have you have to have legal representation. You have to have financial representation. Is the person savvy enough to be able to read, a P&L or, all the financial documents to verify that the business is what the owner says it is? I think those are some questions I need to ask. And some of this can be learned on podcasts, right? There are podcasts for, aspiring business owners of what to look for, what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, all of that stuff. And then, so that's where I would say it's a good place to start.
And what's the usual multiple an HVAC business gets bought for?
Well, it really depends. It depends on the size, right? So the bigger the company, the more stable it is assumed to be. Right? So if it's an HVAC company that's making $5 million in revenue a year,
Yeah.
then you're going to be considered more stable than a company that's making $500,000 a year.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
guy that's making 5 million can ask for a higher EBITDA multiple, right?
Mhm.
Whereas, maybe a guy that's making, if it's at $500,000 revenue, maybe you're only asking for a 2.5 multiple. But if you're making 5 million, you're asking for a $7 to $10 million multiple. And what I just explained to you, that in a nutshell is private equity, right?
Yeah.
They buy these companies on smaller multiples. They figure out a way to increase the revenue, and then they sell them for much higher multiples, and they make big profit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's happening so often, so fucking often. Yeah.
Yes, in HVAC, it's actually it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Private equity is kind of the big gorilla in the room, and
Yeah.
and then you have all the small business owners that are trying to compete. And and it happens here. There's an HVAC company in Dallas that's making $100 million a year, right? I mean, that's probably the biggest. That's the biggest. But those guys have $20 million marketing budgets.
Yeah.
Well, how am I going to compete, right? So, you know, I think that we offer a better product, right? But we're not going to get our name in front of the customer as much as that competitor will be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sure.
how do I convince them of that? And yeah,
Yeah,
so
I would agree on that. And that is one of the reason why cost per lead or cost per click online, got so much higher in the last 3 years.
yes.
These P firms. This is the last question. Where do you see Washburn Air heading in the next 3 years?
I mean, for us right now, I am wanting us to be the premier HVAC company for Grapevine, right? So I would say if you go onto Google right now, we're top 5, right?
Mhm.
But if you're top 3, you get a lot more visibility, right? And depending on search, we are sometimes top 3, but we're very rarely in that number 1 or number 2 spot. How do we get there? And part of that is just market research. I'm basically, you have to reverse engineer it. You start to Google your competitors, you start to see, oh, well, what backlinks do they have? Well, you know how you do it? You just go into Google and type in their name, and then look at the first 50 pages that come up under your competitor's name. You'll find out who they're linked to. You'll find out a lot about that company. Can you have relationships with the same companies? Maybe yes, maybe no. But you start to figure out, okay, what is the framework that makes these people attractive to Google? And then how do I duplicate that? So you have Google Analytics. Are you looking at the health of your reputation online, your Google reviews, your social media?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that was it, man. Thanks a lot. This was really insightful. And yeah, by the way, if anyone wants to connect with you, is there any place or if is there any social media platform you prefer if anyone wants to?
We're on Facebook. You can just type in Washburn Air. We're on LinkedIn. Our website is www.washburnair.com. We're on Instagram, and of course by phone as well. We'd be happy to help anybody that has questions or needs help.
Cool. Thanks for your time again. And yeah, it was great talking to you, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it.